As we begin, I invite us all to stand as we sing the national anthem. Please be seated for prayer. Let us pray. Dear Lord God, our Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for your inspiration, for your visioning, for your calling upon the lives of persons. We thank you, Lord, that you continue to inspire. You continue to create imagination and cause people to see themselves as a part of your mission and glory. We thank you, Lord, for the seed you planted in the heart of Reverend Stephen James, our founding father, and for how, oh God, you allowed him with the desire in his heart to create an institution for young minds in this region of our island. We pray, Lord, that as we celebrate his legacy, as we continue to reflect on how he and others would have worked to shape the minds of this region, that, Lord, will continue to inspire and evoke your spirit of creativity in the hearts and minds of everyone. We pray that as we gather this afternoon for a second annual Founders Day lecture, that the fire that was ignited by William Nib and passed on through to Reverend James and to others will continue to burn in our hearts as we continue the work of growth in this era, in the lives of persons. So may your blessing, even now, mighty God, be with us. Guide our proceedings this evening, and may it be to your honor and to your glory. Through Christ we pray. Amen and amen. Board of Governors, headed by our chairman, principal, and academic and ancillary staff, Reverend David Thomas, Vice President of Jamaica Baptist Union, representing our President, Reverend Merlin Hyde Riley, General Secretary of the Jamaica Baptist Union, and other clergy members in the audience. specially invited guests, representatives from the Jamaica Teachers Association, boys and girls, students, well-wishers, good evening or good afternoon. It is indeed a pleasure to be here sharing with you in this, our second annual Founders Day lecture. Our founding father, the Reverend Stephen S. James, pastor of the Kettering Circuit of Baptist Churches, which is my home circuit, who, upon recognizing that there was no high school for boys in the parish at the time, dreamt of establishing a co-educational school to continue the work started by the Reverend William Nib. So on January 16, 1961, the William Nib Memorial High School was started with 41 students, 21 girls and 20 boys, in the old Baptist Manse at 9 Market Street, Falmouth, till it was relocated to its current site on Carb Road, Martha Bray, in 1976. It was a passion of our founding father, the Reverend Stephen James, to be led by the pursuit of knowledge which fueled the birth of our school. In his mind, the absence of knowledge brings enslavement, and especially at a time when fortune was only for a few. His legacy is one which should never be lost, and more so in a time when information is at our fingertips. Now more than ever, the skill to differentiate between knowledge and information is essential. It is with this in mind that the Alumni Association started this lecture as a feature of our annual Founders Day celebration. Though the event is being planned by the alumni, it is in partnership with the school. The Founders Day lecture, first stage in 2024, was aimed at celebrating the school's rich heritage and fostering a sense of community among students, staff, and alumni and stakeholders. The Reverend Dr. Glenn Morelela, the immediate past president of Jamaica Baptist Union, delivered the inaugural lecture under the theme, The Legacy of Stephen S. James, Education, Transformation, Liberation. A people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. These words were uttered by the Right Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, First National Hero of Jamaica, who was a Pan-Africanist activist, journalist, and entrepreneur. Marcus Garvey made this statement at a time in which black people around the world was disconnected from their origin and who they were as a people. History, for Marcus, was the foundation that would allow blacks to strive and become who they were meant to be. But without it, was doomed to destruction, much like a tree without roots. The William Nib Memorial alumni, in partnership with the school, seeks to continue this role of passing on this history, this legacy today, for the people of tomorrow. As our school motto clearly states, ignorance enslaves, knowledge liberates. Sit back, relax, as we soak in the lecture to be shared by our esteemed lecturer, E.G. Anthony Falloon, as he presents on the topic, looking at our past as we stride into our future. At this time, we just want to share with you that we do recognize apologies for persons who, for some reasons, are not here today, and so we just want to acknowledge. Thank you. That they're unable to be here. The Honorable Custos Hugh Gentles, Custos of Trelawney, is representative Miss Justice Jennifer Smith. Is she here? She's not. Dr. the Honorable Christine Bolt, past student, who is unavailable because he's not on the island. Councillor Roydell Pete Hamilton and Garth Wilkinson, who is unavoidably absent. Mr. Sheldon O'Connor, member of the school board, along with Mrs. Norma Foster, who is also unavailable to attend. Mrs. Sonia Shirley, Mr. Clayton Lang, Mr. Delroy Burnett, past students who are unable to be here. And so at this time, as we continue, we want to listen to some remarks from the Jamaica Baptist Union, and this will be done by the Reverend David Thomas, Vice President of our union. Please welcome him. And
Reverend Gary Knowles, moderator, Mr. Leighton Johnson, our esteemed General Secretary, past GenSec also, Board Chair, Reverend Jonathan Hemmings, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen in the audience, and also other church members, boys and girls, and of course, Mr. Falloon. Allow me to use this opportunity to share just a brief thought with you. Activism and advocacy have combined to propel William Knibb to a significant and lasting place in the history, not only of the Jamaica Baptist Union, but of the entire Jamaica, the Caribbean, and the world. Every time one hears the name Usain Bolt, and when the requisite research is done, this is going to lead right back to the name William Knibb. Knibb's positive display and interpretation of the Christian mission and message has allowed him to be a very bold visionary and a victorious activist. The high school that proudly bears his name is certainly not lost on its significance today in perpetuating his memory through the vision of the Reverend Stephen James. This second lecture serves as a testament to a long-term commitment to a fitting and well-deserved memorial to a legacy that inspires hard work, perseverance, and courage. The Jamaica Baptist Union congratulates and commends those who initiated this lecture and hope that the lessons learned from the lives of the Reverend C.S. Reed, the Reverend Stephen James, and the Honorable Usain Bolt will both inspire and challenge the hearers to never stop believing that with God all things are possible, to never stop hoping for the best, and never stop dreaming big dreams. So then, we look forward to a very inspiring and edifying afternoon. The Lord bless you all as we continue this journey. God bless.
We now invite Mr. Leighton Johnson, immediately past president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, to come and to bring greetings. After that, we'll have a presentation to Mr. Webster Thompson.
Host of this afternoon's lecture, Reverend David Thomas, Vice President, and other clergy members of the Jamaica Baptist Union, Past Principal Falloon, Principal Linvern Wright, members of the alumni, staff, students, other specially invited guests, good afternoon. It is both an honor and a privilege to stand before you this afternoon on behalf of the President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Dr. Mark Smith, as we commemorate the 64th anniversary of the William Knibb Memorial High School through this lecture. As we have assembled here to celebrate the past, acknowledge the present, and envision the future, we are reminded of the enduring legacy of excellence that this esteemed institution has cultivated since its foundation. The William Knibb Memorial High School has played a pivotal role in the educational landscape of Jamaica. From its inception, the school has been a beacon of knowledge, nurturing the minds and hearts of countless men and women, equipping them with necessary tools to succeed and contribute significantly and meaningfully to our society. The school's commitment to education goes beyond the acquisition of knowledge. It instills values of respect, discipline, and community service, which resonate deeply within our nation's ethos. As we reflect on the contributions made by this institution, we recognize that its influence extends far beyond the classroom. This school has produced outstanding leaders in various fields of education, business, politics, and the arts, individuals who have gone to shape Jamaica's cultural and economic landscape. The legacy of these distinguished alumni serves as testament to the school's unwavering dedication to excellence and character building. So as we celebrate this significant milestone of 64 years with this lecture, let us express our heartfelt gratitude to those educators who have devoted their lives to shaping the future of our youth. It is through their unwavering commitment and passion, as well as the ideals of William Knibb, that this institution continues to thrive. I would like to extend my heartiest and sincerest congratulations to the administration, the alumni, the faculty, and the students of the William Knibb Memorial High School on this remarkable achievement of this anniversary. So may the next 64 years continue to build on the rich tapestry that exists in this place, the legacies of excellence, innovation, and the service to our beloved country. Thank you, William Knibb, and all who have served. May the light of knowledge continue to shine and guide us all. At this time, I invite the chair of the alumni as well as the principal of William Knibb to accept a contribution from the Jamaica Teachers Association, and this is in aid of the school's technological infrastructure. Let the light of William continue to shine. Jamaica Teachers Association is proud to be associated with William Knibb. We pray that as you continue, as this school continues to serve, then the students who are here will be benefactors of a rich educational experience. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Mr. Thompson, on behalf of the Class Students Association, it is indeed my sincere and absolute pleasure to make a presentation as you end one chapter of your career and go into another journey. There's joy in the journey. On behalf of the association, we'd like to thank you for your 42 years of sterling service to this institution. We want to again thank Mr. Thompson and wish him all the best as he moves into another chapter of his career, and we wish for him God's richest blessing and good health and strength as he enjoys his retirement. We also have another small token for you that you can sit and enjoy the ride as well. So sit down. Don't also just sit and enjoy, and you can also read as well.
Yes. Right.
Right here?
Both of you. Mr.
Here?
Thompson. Yeah, Mr. Thompson.
Stand up the box. Stand up in there.
Yes, can you move a bit to your right? So, no, it's all right. You just want to move outside. We don't want the podium, the lecturer. No, don't move the lecturer. Okay, all right.
Location.
Chairman of the function, Chairman of the Board of Management, the principal and staff, the members of the Alumni Association, special invited guests, and especially students. Good afternoon. I started in 1982, and when I came, there was a name ringing in the school. Mr. Falloon. Everything was Mr. Falloon, and Mr. Falloon was here. Mr. Falloon. And you hear the lawyers over here, the past students from that time. It was a wonderful experience, and being a Trelawney man, I could have gone to teach somewhere else, but I felt that I wanted to be contributing to my parish, and I have done that through the grace of God and His mercy. And the school has grown to the point where it needs more classrooms and other bits of infrastructure. But I am sure that with time, that will come. But the message that I want to leave here is that it's all about the students. That is the key. I mean, we have had principals over the time that have said, look, teachers, remember that it's the students who are here, you know. It's the students who are here. If we have no students who need you as teachers or VP or principal or anything. So, I want us to continue to focus on the students and their welfare. Because as a previous speaker has said, I see them everywhere in all facets of life, and I'm so proud of them. to see how well they have done. And the key thing is this: look out for those who are weak, the weaker students. Whatever programs you can put in place to help them, please help them. Because there are some who have come from the bottom, and if you see where they are now, it's a tremendous thing. So let's not just focus on those who are doing very well, but the weaker ones and the ones in the middle, you know, and God will bless us and our nation will be better. And finally, and this is for all of us, not just students, but it's not just about academics, because one of the problems in education today is that there is a focus on academic excellence. And nothing is wrong with that. But the problem is character development is not emphasized enough, because the two things need to go together. So academic excellence is fine, but based on what is happening in the world right now, it's pointless to have bright people who have no character. So let us focus on that. And thank you very much for all that you have done for me here, and I will continue to do whatever I can to support the school and its development as the years roll by. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for sharing. And I just want for us to note, those of us who are here, especially our past students, that the alumni is a giving one. And I want to note the word giving. But to give, we must have something to give. And especially those that are online and overseas, I want to appeal to you that there's much work to be done here at our school. And so, please, when we reach out to you to ask for your assistance in making this school to the school that we want it to be, we ask that you just open the doors, open the windows, send it however you can, so that our school can continue to be the #1 school in the parish. I thought I got now going away with applause. I don't understand. You have to believe this. I believe this, and I tell everybody where I go that my school is the #1 school, because I am from that school, and because of that school, I'm where I am today. And so if you don't start to tell yourself that, then no one else will believe it. And so I want for us to begin to say that as past students, as current students, as persons who are friends of the school, let us give back to make it better. I want to also acknowledge the presence of the President of Jamaica Baptist Union, Reverend Grant Fraser, who is here. Welcome, sir. Although that I know that you're going to be absent, sir, we are happy that you came, and we are happy that you're here with us, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. At this time, we invite Ellis Lane to come, past student, to come at this time and to introduce our guest lecture for this evening. Please welcome.
Thank you. Reverend Gary Knowles, moderator, esteemed guests from church, education, business, and the community, students, members of staff, alumni, media practitioners, friends on location here in the Stephen James Auditorium, and those joining virtually by the YouTube channel of the William Knibb Memorial Baptist Church. Good afternoon. It is good to see all of us who are present in this space. And if I might, just before I introduce our guest lecturer, if I might invite all of the past students of this school to stand. And I'm very pleased to see the number of past students present here this year. Thank you. Thanks for all that you do in our society as proud products of William Knibb Memorial High School. If you look on your program, you will see the theme, looking at our past as we stride into the future. And when we thought initially and conceived, when this theme was conceived, the intent at the time was to explore the lives, as we have said in the program, of 3 outstanding individuals associated with the school. And the names, you see the images on the program, and you see the names in the program: Reverend Stephen James, Reverend C. Sam Reed, and Dr. the Honorable Usain Bolt. The theme says, looking at our past as we stride into the future. But when we considered the great work of the Reverend gentleman, Reverend Stephen James, the founder, who struggled against odds, great odds, to start the William Knibb Memorial High School. And when we considered the contribution of the Reverend Clarence Sam Reed, and when we think of the outstanding work of one alumnus who was bolted across this world, we thought it may be better to look at the 2 reverend gentlemen in this lecture, and at another time to bolt across the finish track with the one Usain Bolt. And so today our guest lecturer will present in relation to the Reverend Stephen James and the Reverend C. Sam Reed and their contributions to the school. Just to acknowledge that we were also in touch with Dr. the Honorable Usain Bolt, who is unavoidably absent. He's traveling and not able to be with us. And so we just wish to correct that for us as we start this aspect of the program. And so to the more important matter here that I have been called to do, it is my privilege, ladies and gentlemen, and for me, a distinct pleasure to introduce our Founders Day lecturer, a guest of sorts, because this space is not new to him. A revered member of the William Knibb Memorial High School community. We heard Mr. Thompson speak of the Whispers, a man whose legacy in education and leadership is both remarkable and inspiring. A distinguished scholar, educator, and administrator with academic credentials that read like a roadmap of excellence. Our lecturer is a graduate of the University of the West Indies, Mona, the United Theological College of the West Indies, and the University of Oxford, England. From these institutions, our lecturer earned the qualifications of BA, Special Honors, Diploma in Education, and an MA in Theology. He also holds a Diploma in Human Resource Management from the Institute of Management and Production, one of the forerunners of the current UCC. His journey in education began in the classroom, teaching history at institutions such as Kingston College and the Meadowbrook High School. His passion for learning soon extended beyond the classroom when he became a pioneer in educational broadcasting with the Educational Broadcasting Service in the 1970s, presenting social studies programs that reached students across the island. A master storyteller and a communicator of the highest order. His impact on education deepened during his tenure as an education officer with the Ministry of Education and as principal of the William Knibb Memorial High School from 1975 to 1981. During those 6 years, he demonstrated unwavering dedication to nurturing young minds and instilling a love for history and learning. He became well known in Falmouth and wider Trelawney, serving the church and several community organizations. I still recall his work with the Interdenominational Youth for Christ and his initiative as principal for the school to adopt and extend care to the Trelawney Infirmary. He was loved, still is loved, as he was feared. And he gained the moniker champion, the genesis I should research, a name usually called respectfully behind his back, possibly never to his face. Following his time at William Knibb Memorial High School, he expanded his influence within education, serving the University of the West Indies as assistant registrar and senior assistant registrar in Trinidad, and later as campus registrar in Jamaica, retiring from the university in 2007. But even in retirement, his commitment to education endured as he served as an advisor to university principals for an additional 9 years. His contributions extend far beyond education. As a lifelong servant of the Jamaica Baptist Union, a loving husband of 57 years to his wife Dorrit, a proud father of 3 and a grandfather of 7, he exemplifies integrity, kindness, and humility in all areas of his life. Known for his sharp wit, keen sense of humor, and unflappable demeanor, he is a man who commands respect while giving it freely to others, irrespective of their station in life. As a historian, his love for the past and deep connection to William Knibb's rich heritage make him the perfect choice to deliver this year's Founders Day lecture. Having worked alongside notable figures like Reverend Sam Reed, and with a profound understanding of Reverend Stephen James's vision for this institution, he is uniquely positioned to guide us on a journey through our past as we boldly stride into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our distinguished guest lecturer, a man of wisdom, warmth, and unwavering commitment to education and humanity, Mr. Edward George Anthony Tony Falloon. Ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm promising, I'll have to leave that for those who follow after me, not necessarily in the school, but in life. That, not sure, but when I pass, I know exactly who you should ask to represent me with a tribute. And he looks very young, he still is very young, but he actually was here just before I left the institution. And so I have a special relationship with him along with all the others who, I like the term, although it has politically some perhaps not such good meanings, but the loyalists, those who were here, that's when I was principal. But thank you very much for that warm welcome. And, it's standing here really brings back very fond memories. And it is And I sound like I'm going to break down. I don't think so. But, you know, I've stood in this place, this very place, on so many occasions in the past. And I spoke to the students and teachers and parents at times. The graduations were held here, still are. And so there was a wide cross section of persons. So, you know, the members are rich and deep. And it really is a joyful occasion for me to be back here and in this capacity that I am. And you know I don't look quite like I used to look when I left here 44 years ago. And if you know me, check the picture in the library. I think there's a photograph of past principals there. And you know, I don't want to make the comparison. You can when you have the opportunity. And there are things over which you have no control. Which reminds me of a story actually that I heard some time ago about this man who went to his dentist's office to do some dental work. And while he was there, he noticed that on the wall, you know, he's gone to this dentist many years, but on this wall, where there used to be a picture, a photograph of his dentist, and some statements afterwards, there was a female, a woman was in it. That puzzled him for a little while, and then he remembered that he had read somewhere that his dentist, the original dentist, was in fact giving up the practice there. He was selling it, and it's a woman who was going to succeed him as the dentist. And then that brought back that memory to him. And then he looked carefully at the photograph once again, and the face was familiar, and he began to think, well, why is that dentist familiar? And then something clicked with him. He said, that back in the day, in 1960, that was in the class that I was at ABC High School. So now she has become a dentist, huh? I see. And then he remembered that he actually had a crush on her when they were at school together. So he was, you know, kind of upbeat about it, and wow, she has done well. She's done, I know her. So his turn came to be called into the inner sanctum of the dentist's practice, and he went in. And he was a little taken aback because he remembers her as quite an attractive young woman. Hence, what didn't lead anywhere apparently, but there was that crush. And he politely took his seat in the chair, and the procedure was done. But he couldn't leave without reflecting. Because when he saw her and he was a little taken aback, she didn't look anything like what she was at ABC High School at all. She was all gray, cheeks were sagging, even her color had changed somewhat, and she was a little kind of hunched, you know. So he was really taken aback what time had done with her. So he plucked up the courage and he said, so he called her name. You went to ABC High School? And she said, yes, I went. And he identified himself and said that I was there at the time. And then he said to her, and you graduated, and she said, 1960? He said, yes, you graduated in 1960. Yeah. And he kind of said, well, you don't remember me, huh? And she said, no, I don't remember you. Don't remember you at all. And then she looked him in the eye and said, what subject were you teaching at school? Yes. So we need to be careful how we speak. And one thing that I took away from the first time I heard it, that I need to pay greater attention to my mirror. and look at it more frequently. Because then I see what others are seeing in me and on me. But friends, it's really, as I said, a great joy. And it's deep, and it just brings great happiness to my spirit, to my mind, and I wish for all of you. And I'm so happy that, I don't know whether this happened last year, that the senior students in the school were invited to the lecture, right? Because I thought it was a great move, great. Not only keep the numbers up, but also for them to benefit, from whatever is said. Hopefully, things that will resonate with them and help them as they traverse the future, both here at school and in their lives generally. Well, let me move on and get back to my formal text. I'm moderator and president of the Alumni Association, chairman of the board, who had the privilege of traveling over to this point to here today with members of staff, and I believe a member or two from the JTA, students who we will never forget, as the previous speaker said, they are the reasons why we're here. Students, we're happy, delighted to have you. And if I've omitted anybody else, and perhaps another group that actually has come to mind, is that the president of the Jamaica Baptist Union is here, even though it wasn't expected, I gather, earlier on. Happy to have you, sir. And since I'm kind of knowledgeable of some of the others, all from the hierarchy, I won't use the word, the top brass, I don't particularly like that term, but the current General Secretary, immediately previous General Secretary, the Deputy President of the Union from this region, and on this occasion we'll mix St. James with Falloon. But I would ask you not to mix them up in future, sir. All right? Yes, and all the others, ladies and gentlemen, and well-wishers who are here, welcome. That has been given formally, but I recognize you, and I'm delighted that you could have been doing other things if you've taken the time to be here this afternoon. The theme of my presentation will be looking at our past as we stride into our future. The focus, as has been by now revealed, will be two persons closely associated with William Lee Memorial High School, whose careers have impacted the institution. Reverend Stephen Sylvanus James, our founder and first chairman of the Board of Governors, and the Reverend Clarence Samuel Reed, our second chairman. My intention is to highlight aspects of their work and lives, which have been significant, inspirational, and can be deeply motivational. Reverend Stephen James. Reverend James received his early education at the Eldersley Elementary School in St. Elizabeth, the parish of his birth, and later attended Calabar Theological College, from which he graduated in 1933. He served firstly as a minister of the Jamaica Baptist Union, JBU, in the parish of St. Thomas, and then as a missionary of the denomination to the Turks and Caicos Islands for some 6 years. On his return to Jamaica in 1944, he was called to the Salters Hill Circuit in St. James, and in 1950 took what became for us a giant step into the parish of Trelawney, to become the pastor of the Kettering Circuit in nearby Dunkirks. York Walters, an award-winning journalist, accomplished author, and incidentally a nephew of the Reverend Stephen James, in his book, William Nidd Memorial High School, the first 50 years, 1961 to 2011, and I'm wondering if there are any, yes, some will be, fine, glad to see that. I don't have shares in the book, but I think it's just good information to be available to us, and we must make use of that opportunity to purchase. But I'm sure that will be promoted before the end of the evening. The book was published in 2018, and in the opening chapter, the author states, and I quote, "It is not known for certain when Reverend James first thought of a school, but by 1954 he had begun putting his thoughts into words and expressing them. End of quote. That date is significant because it was the first occasion on which he became chairman of the JBU, a position which would facilitate his giving expression to the incipient ideas about a high school, and in particular, a high school in this part of Toronto. Walters was privileged while doing his research for the book to interview Reverend James's daughter, Pauline, who is still alive and lives in Canada, about her father. She recalled that he talked incessantly with anyone who would listen about his vision for a high school in Dunkirk. Such persons included colleague pastors, deacons in his churches, and his own relatives. Importantly, he talked with the JBU and the then Custos, the Honorable Val Carnell, landowner and officially the most powerful man in the parish, with whom it is said he became quite friendly. Reverend James's vision for a high school in Dunkirk arose primarily from his recognition of the great need that existed for secondary education in Lower Trelawney, which was more densely populated than Upper Trelawney. However, it was in the latter era, Upper Trelawney, Stuarttown, that the only high school in the parish existed, Westwood. Not only was Westwood an all-girls school, as we know, but given its location about 34 kilometers from Falloon, commuting was largely impractical, and boarding costs were beyond the reach of most families. The other options available were in Montego Bay, where three high schools existed: Montego Bay High for girls, Mount Alvernia High for girls, and Cornwall College for boys. Apart from the relatively small numbers who were able to get into these schools by way of scholarships through the Ministry of Education or by paying fees, the rest of the elementary school students remained in their all-age schools until, as often as it used to be often said, until their time was up. Other factors were which propelled the Reverend James towards the development of a high school in Lower Trelawney, were the theology and history of his denomination. Baptists believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ is not only redemptive for their souls, but the souls of humankind in general, but also for their minds and their bodies, and that God is interested in meeting their physical, social, and material needs. Baptist history, particularly as it unfolded in Jamaica during the years of enslavement and in the early post-emancipation period, clearly demonstrated that high priority was placed not only on saving souls and preparing them for the life hereafter, but also on liberating the enslaved population from physical slavery and facilitating their educational, social, and economic development. The free village system, about which we've heard much, most of us, even the younger ones, would have heard through schooling, hopefully, the school that shares its knowledge. Introduced by Reverend James Philippo, that's the free village system, a Baptist missionary in the Sligoville era, was readily adopted by both Thomas Burchell, who worked in St. James, and our own William Nick, who pastored the Falmouth Baptist Church from 1830 to 1845. Walters points out in his book, already cited, that these new settlements were established after emancipation on abandoned or rundown estates, which had been bought by the Baptists and other members of the anti-slavery societies, who in turn sold them in plots to groups of formerly enslaved persons at inexpensive prices. Of tremendous significance is the fact that in each village, listen to this carefully, a chapel and a school were constructed. No doubt some of you present or participating remotely are cognizant of the free villages which were established near here, such as Goodwill, Refuge, and Good Hope. It is also worthy of note that Baptists were so committed to the liberating value of education that from as early as 1837, they formed the Jamaica Baptist Education Society to develop and deepen their involvement in education. So this school, like a walk-up school, deeply embedded in our history and in our spirit, and is a commitment to various forms to education. We thank God for that. Nim's belief in education was not parochial. He was one of those persons instrumental in the founding of the Calabar Theological College at Buena for the training of men for service to the British Baptist Missionary Society in the West Indies and Africa. We're sending missionaries to Africa. Long before many other societies and places and institutions. As is fairly well known, the college later moved to different locations in Kingston and St. Andrews, and added a high school of the same name, Calabar. Later, the Theological College merged with other denominations to become the United Theological College of the West Indies. It would be simplistic of me to attempt to evaluate the impact of Nim, his contribution to Baptist witness in Trelawney, by statistics only, but they do give a glimpse of the depth and breadth of the work in which he engaged. Between 1824, when he arrived in Jamaica, and 1845, the year of his untimely death, it is estimated that he was responsible for founding 35 churches, 24 missions, and 16 schools, and that in one 10-year period, he baptized 3,000 people. It was on January 15, 1961, that Reverend James, his dream of a high school in Lower Trelawney, became a reality. Former residents of Reverend William Nick, he used to live there, Strong opened its doors to admit 41 students, 21 girls and 20 boys, to the William Nick Memorial High School. That day, the school is established as a private high school under the auspices of the Jamaica Baptist Union. If there was ever any doubt in your mind, or in mine for that matter, as I prepared this lecture, that the Reverend James was truly the founder of the William Nick Memorial High School, you only have to reflect on the tremendous role he played in identifying and personally recruiting the first 3 principals. In 1960, he journeyed, that's he, Reverend James, to the home of a Mrs. Beatrice Barrett, retired principal of the Johns Hall Primary School in St. James, to explain to her what was about to happen at Market Street in Falloon, and to invite her to become the school's first principal. She politely declined. But she had a good reason. She said she had recently remarried. And if that wasn't good enough, a younger person, she just said, would be better suited to this position. And clearly, what follows from the remarriage, she had to look after her husband. And she needed looking after who she had just retired. She found a good partner. As the story goes, before Reverend James reached his car, leaving the house, her house, Mrs. Barrett called him back, called out to him. And she proceeded to inform him that her son, Neville Mandison, who had recently returned from Canada with 2 degrees earned at the Sir George Williams University, that he might be interested, she said, in the position, that he was looking a job. And if so, she would be willing to work alongside with him as a staff member to get the school started. As divine providence would have it, young Mandison was in the house at the same time, sleeping. His mother awakened him. A conversation with Reverend James ensued, and within 30 minutes he gave his word to accept the position. Principal Wright, he so quickly decided to come here and we're coming to with, of course, one understanding that his mother would be by his side as a member of staff. When Madison resigned as principal at the end of the first year to migrate to Bermuda with his young wife again, at the end of his first year to migrate again, to pursue further studies, it took no time for the Board of Governors under the chairmanship of Reverend James to appoint Mrs. Barrett as principal. Remember, it was her son who was the first principal. It was agreed that this would be on an interim basis, because she had already retired from the system, so to speak, until a long-term replacement could be found. Her tenure lasted for 2 years until December 1963. No doubt, the search for Mrs. Barrett's successor began soon after she had assumed duties in January 1962, the time when school began in those days, for the year. But it was in the latter part of 1963 that Reverend James once again displayed his characteristic dedication and purposefulness in the push to find a third principal for the fledgling school. One Sunday, during that year, at a morning service at the Hanover Street Baptist Church in Kingston, he met one Mr. Arthur Edgar, who had recently graduated from the UW with a master's degree in zoology. At that first meeting, unsurprisingly, Reverend James took the initiative to talk with him about the need for a principal at the William Hill School and invited him to think about taking up that position. Arthur assured him that he would consider the matter. Months later, he received a message that he should go to visit Reverend James, who was seriously ill at the St. Joseph's Hospital in Kingston. He undertook the visit. Heard from Reverend James that God had led him to place the need for a principal at the school, and he wanted to talk to him about that. The conversation continued. And then among the things he said to him was that he wanted him to really be in prayer about this possibility. He left, and after further struggle on his part, that was he, Arthur Edgar, and consultation, these kinds of things we want to find out from others, get their opinions. Given that he was a young man who had a kind of academic career ahead of him too, so it was a big decision. But after the prayer, the struggling, consultation, young Edgar was able to give a final and positive response to Reverend James. Things moved rapidly from that point. Mr. Edgar was duly appointed and was able to assume the principalship of the school in January 1964. There are many takeaways from this story, friends. But the one that stands out most for me as we celebrate Founders Day is that our founder, while lying seriously ill in hospital, had the school on his mind and in his heart, and took practical steps to successfully recruit yet another principal. Let's put our hands together. The establishing of the William A. Memorial High School at Market Street in 1961 was a significant step in the fulfillment of Stephen James's dream for accessible high school education in North Trelawney. However, he, the Board of Governors, Principal Edgar, the JBU, which gave and continues to give its full support, and other well-wishers, were cognizant of the space constraints of the old manse, which restrained enrollment and curriculum development, and of the grossly inadequate private budget under which the fledgling institution operated. Constant representation was therefore made to the Minister of Education for assistance, with a view to the institution becoming a fully grant-aided high school in a physical setting which would facilitate the achievement of the vast possibilities that lay ahead. In Walters' book on the first 50 years, Principal Edgar provides a useful summary of the struggles that ensued in the years between Market Street and Carrick Road, the present location, as you know. This is how he puts it in his book, and I quote: "The present site near Martha Break is the third and smallest of the three sites purchased or sought for the school by the JBU. Smallest. It's a small site when you come to think of it, when you see it. But I say to board members and Principal Wright, there are other places when you were to expand. And I heard some reference to a further expansion, right? And you know that old building from which we came, it still belongs to the church. I know they're using it for some good purpose, I believe. But I don't want to say money talks, but you know, never write it off. As space, or space can be created. But there's also a piece of land next door as you're coming from the main road. Beautiful piece of land. I had my eyes on it while I was here, but time ran out on me. It's very fertile too. We have a healthy agricultural program here. And you ever see the pumpkins that come from there when they're planted. They're used for all kinds of things. Passed by there subsequently. I mean, seem to have a storage place for the government heavy duty equipment and so on. And I went and actually spoke to the then owner. I don't know if the Muslim family still owns it. Yeah. But it's a beautiful piece of land. And it's very, very near. So principal, board members, keep it in mind. We pass it every day, those who come to school here or work here. Yeah, so back to Walters is with my quotation from Walters. The Minister of Education, beg your pardon, turned down Nutshell near Duncan's and the site overlooking the Hague Agricultural Showgrounds. That was another site. At one time, I hear this, at one time we were to be a high school, then a comprehensive high school, and then junior secondary schools, as they were called, it was very much in vogue after a time, and it was also to have been a junior secondary school. And finally, it came back around to a high school. Indeed, the various changes and plans for the school by the Minister of Education, the delays and then unfulfilled promises parallel closely the changes of political leadership in the ministry between 1962 and 1972. The decision in 1972 to delay no longer in building this school will stand to the lasting credit of the government that came into office that year, 1972, and the untiring efforts of the then Member of Parliament, Mr. Desmond. I saw him, he met me when I just came in. Yeah, oh yes. We don't want to look like he might get embarrassed. So and he was at school when I was principal there. Yeah. And this is not 10 days out of school. But it made a difference. Made a difference too. My sense of who this man really was. He was prepared to send his son to the young school. He's not here today with us because he has passed on. No. Zero. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. My apologies.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Lakers.
Mr. Barrett, yeah. Mr. Barrett passed on, yes. Yeah, so I move on. It took another 3 years of planning before ground was finally broken in 1975 and construction began soon after. The buildings these buildings by an acclaimed architect, Marvin Goodman, took shape rapidly and was completed in July 1976. The relocation from Market Street was effected on September 20 of the same year, and the premises dedicated on November 20. The opening of the new plant was greeted with palpable joy and excitement, while I, as the principal who led the march into the Promised Land, felt particularly privileged. Privileged to have been given the opportunity to oversee the utilization of this brand new, fully furnished and equipped complex comprising 25 teaching classrooms, several laboratories, workshops and other special rooms, an administrative block, staff rooms, a canteen, a multi-purpose auditorium, a hard court, and a small playfield with room for expansion. And that expansion, as best as it can, has taken place. And you can understand the transformation and the impact it will have. You know the old man's You walk into this place, yes, you just transform. It's overwhelming, mind-boggling. What do you do with all this space and all these classrooms? We use it wisely too. Most of all, we use it as one of the strategies, one of the resources that we have to expand rapidly our curriculum. I believe that I can say without fear of contradiction that the person who was most elated at that opening, November 20, 1976, was the Reverend Stephen James. When he cut the ribbon at the doors of this very auditorium, right outside there. The dream which had captivated his mind, a generation from a generation, after numerous setbacks, frustrations, and at times deep financial challenges, had finally come to full reality and in his own lifetime. After the many admirable qualities possessed by Reverend James were two which stand out. One, his visionary orientation, and two, his perseverance. These were clearly evidenced in the salient aspects of the William Lee Memorial High School story, which I have been sharing with you for the past several minutes. Having vision is an invaluable asset for successful living in all spheres of human existence: physical, social, economic, educational, psychological, and spiritual. It is significant that it is in the Bible and in the book of Proverbs, traditionally attributed to King Solomon, chapter 29, verse 18, that we find the text, and I quote, "Where there is no vision, the people perish," from the King James. History is also filled with examples of persons who had remarkable achievements in diverse fields, propelled in large measure by the power of their visions, their dreams, if you will. The Wright brothers spring immediately to mind. Their dream was to achieve the vision of flight, a universal aspiration down through the centuries. They were the ones who created the first heavier than air-powered aircraft. These were, believe it or not, ordinary guys who operated a bicycle shop. Coming nearer home was Wesley A. Powell, former principal of Excelsior High School fame, who in his early days, and this is interesting, who in his early days, I think his father was away from the island, perhaps, a lot of traveling took place as it does now. And while the father was away, he became a truant at the school. He was more adept and interested in playing marbles and cricket than attending school. And what made it worse, the family home was in a place called Campbelltown, which is just before you get down to the Ministry of Education, right? Now, kind of, not so well endowed, let me put it that way. I don't know what it was like then. But that's where he was. But the important thing, the significant and relevant thing is that, guess what was right across the street from Campbelltown? What used to be called a race course. Right, the Georgia 6 Memorial Park. And so it was easy movement from home to playground. And that was his one. Instead of being in school, quite up years old. By age 21, however, he had discovered his potential and the value of education for people of all social backgrounds and ages. And he opened a school of his own on his parents' veranda in Campbelltown with 5 students. The rest is history, as they say, in pursuit of his dream of education for all. Whatever their age or social status, he bequeathed to Jamaica the legacy of the Excelsior Education Center, commonly referred to as acting EXCE, incorporating pre-primary, primary, secondary, and tertiary schools. The community college, which set the pace and standard for community colleges in Jamaica, continues to be the largest in the island, operates classes during regular school hours and from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. and in some disciplines also on weekends. Second quality with regard to our founding father, perseverance. It possessed our founder, and it's also a biblical principle. Here St. Paul, as he encourages the Galatian Christians in chapter 6 and verse 9 of his letter, and I quote, "Let us not become weary in doing good or in well doing, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And I do. Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, was a great example of perseverance in action. He famously said, after failing 1,000 times in his experiments, and I quote, "I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps." Failure was not a deterrent for him. Rather, it was a learning experience. Another famous example of perseverance related to a friend of mine who has written a pretty good book, among others. Tony Williamson is his name. No, Pastor, I think I'm correct this time. Because I gave a tribute to the story. This story in the book, The Courage to Conquer, is the story of a man, this particular story, there are many stories in the book, who loved drawing comic strips when he was a boy. But as a young man, he was advised by the editor of the company where he worked to give up his passion. He didn't see any value in that. In fact, he was kicked out of his job, pounded the pavement for a long while, and finally got a job with a church. We came to the rescue to draw publicity material. He worked out of a little garage, and he had for his only company a little mouse who crept across the passage from time to time, who he befriended and called Mickey. His name of this man, who had skills in drawing, Walt Disney. Walt Disney. And the name of his rodent friend, Mickey Mouse. When he approached the bank about doing a project with Mickey Mouse, they threw him out, laughing into scorn. But in 1931, having had a nervous breakdown, rejections, and setbacks, he persisted with his dream. And he didn't tell you the rest of the story. It's the rest of the people. What is it? Rejected many times, failed many times. But he was the person who created that empire that exists. It would be remiss of me if I didn't mention one of the world's most admired and famous sons of the modern era, who in the face of tremendous odds demonstrated unimaginable resilience and perseverance. I refer to Nelson Mandela, who had a dream to see a liberated South Africa where every man and every woman would be able to vote for his or her government, and people of all races would be treated with equality and justice. Mandela fought against the system of apartheid from around 1948, when a series of laws legalized racial segregation, which had been widely practiced in South Africa before. It took another 40 plus years before those and other laws in support of the evil system of apartheid were repealed. As is well known, the decades-long resistance up to the system was not a one-man struggle. It embraced it very directly with hundreds of thousands from within the ANC, the African National Congress, and beyond, and drew significant international support in diverse forms. But it was Nelson Mandela who literally and symbolically led the struggle. Even his 27-year period of unbroken imprisonment could not diminish his passion for the cause, nor could the isolation in his, listen carefully, his 7 feet by 8 feet cell on Robben Island, nor his inability to receive a visitor for any more than 30 minutes once per year, nor the restriction of even sending mail and receiving mail, no more than one letter every 6 months. None of these forms of suffering, these forms of punishment in the system would prevent him from pursuing his dream. In his own words, this is what he said: prison, far from breaking our spirits, thinking of himself and his colleagues, could deter us from pursuing until victory was won. Victory finally came when he was freed from prison on 11 February 1990, when the apartheid laws were repealed in 1991, when in 1994 his party, the ANC, won the first democratically led elections in the country, and when Mandela became South Africa's first black president on May 10 of the same year. It seems mind-boggling, my friends, when we contemplate the achievements of Stephen James, Wesley Powell, Thomas Edison, the Wright brothers, Walt Disney, and Nelson Mandela. Surely there are differences in scale, but what they had in common was that they all had a dream. They all had a dream, which inspired them, propelled them, and energized them. When the challenges and setbacks came thick and fast, they never gave up. They persevered, confident that their dreams were worthy of being pursued. This evening, I'd like to ask you, students, members of the Alumni Association, current and previous staff members, principals, board members, visitors of all ranks, well-wishers, and others, do you have a dream? Remember, if you never have a dream, you'll never have a dream come true. Most of you present or online have links to the William Lee Memorial High School. But how are you using your connections to further build this 64-year-old institution? Mr. Principal, I put it to you and I ask you the question, what is your dream for the school for the next 5 years? Or for that matter, the Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools, which I believe you still hold a top position in it. What is your dream for that institution? From what I've seen in the media, Principal, I have no doubt that you have a dream for both of these entities and are pursuing the same. We wish you well and look forward to seeing the fulfillment of your dreams. Friends, maybe you have dreams unrelated to this or any other institution, and that is permissible. Dreams which can revolutionize your personal lives and take you places, young people in particular. Not too early to start dreaming about the future, what you're going to do for yourself, for your family, and for much beyond. Dreaming is important. You know, in the old days, and they perhaps still do, big grown men, and perhaps women too, I don't know, used to go to sleep in the middle of the day. Why? You want to get a dream. Why? So for a place, a good bet. Or depending on the communities in which you live and so on, you know which they call drop on. Now they call pick up house. That take you really So we don't want those kinds of dreams, right? But dreaming about what's possible. It can revolutionize your life and your future. And the organizations and institutions which you work. Several years ago when I was registrar of the Mona campus, continuing in the vein of having a dream of the University of the West Indies, I held a retreat, for my senior staff and invited a motivational speaker. He told me a true story of a reserved, intelligent, but not very well educated young man from humble circumstances in St. Anne. Not speaking, the man says not me. So don't hold me for anything that it might sound negative about St. Anne, who he had employed in his insurance agency. In spite of this man's, the employee's limitations, he showed much promise and had a lot of ambition. One morning, his boss invited him to the then Sheraton Hotel in New Kingston. And after breakfast, he drove him to Beverly Hills, which was nearby, and showed him the city. And of course, they couldn't help but seeing the splendid houses that were on the hilltop there. And as they parked and the engine turned off and so on, the boss pointed to one of these houses that was particularly striking and said, "Young man, one like this can be yours." As the young employee reacted with surprise and skepticism, the boss reassured him that his comment was not idle talk and proceeded to implant in his mind the famous quote, "Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve." The seed that was sown in his mind that morning revolutionized his thinking and bore much fruit. Not long after his epiphany, I call it, at Beverly Hills, he announced to his boss and colleagues that he was going to purchase a Benz soon. His colleagues laughed at him and his dreams, because he went on to say he was going to build a house by the sea and was going to retire at 45. He bought a Benz, built a big house in Discovery Bay, and set to work. He built a big house in Discovery Bay and set to work. He retired at age 44. He had a dream. He pursued it relentlessly. He overcame the obstacles and saw his dream come through. I ask again, do you have a dream? You might agree with what he was dreaming about. There are many other things that you can dream of. If you don't have a dream, I encourage you. Develop one and pursue it relentlessly. Persevere against the odds and watch your dream come true. Reverend Samuel Reed. We thank God for the life of our founder. We move on to Reverend Samuel Reed. It's impatient of debate that the Reverend Sam Reed, the school's second board chairman, had many God-given gifts, and that among them, perhaps at the top of the list, was his intellect. A son of Trelawney, he attended the Bunkers Hill Elementary School and at age 17 enrolled at the Calabar Theological College, one of the youngest ever to have done so. On graduating, he was able to matriculate directly into the prestigious Regent's Park College at Oxford University. One of the few to have been ordained outside of Jamaica. This took place at the Moss Side Baptist Church in Manchester, England in March 1962. After returning to Jamaica, he was called to serve as pastor of the Bethany Circuit in St. Anne, the Tarrant Church in Kingston, and the Calvary Circuit in Montego Bay, which he pastored for 34 years from 1969 to 2003. Service was a dominant characteristic of his life. This was demonstrated in the execution of his pastoral duties amongst his congregants and other persons from surrounding communities, but his service went far beyond that. He was twice elected chairman of the JBU, first in 1971 for 3 years and then again in 1983 for 2 years. It was during his second stint that the JBU celebrated its bicentenary of Baptist witness and work in Jamaica, and he himself authored one of the 2 books that had been commissioned during that period, namely Samuel Shaw, From Slavery to National Hero. Reverend Demon Dick in his Gleaner column on April 15, 2015, shortly after Reverend Reed's passing, gave significant insight into the theological underpinning of his ministry. This is how Reverend Dick put it, and I quote, Reverend Reed understood Jesus' mandate to go into the wider world and make disciples. He understood that, that's what he was. He went on to expand, he wanted God's will to be done in Jamaica as it is in heaven, end of quote. It's not surprising that in the same article he described Reverend Reed as, and I quote, a public pastor who saw the community and country as his parish. This was the kind of man who had the kind of vision he had, the kind of life that he had, kind of motivation. Sam Reed's public pastoring took diverse forms, foremost among them being his numerous columns in the Daily Gleaner over many years, and the hosting of the popular RJR talk show at the time, Hotline, where he was described as being fair and balanced as he spoke truth to power. Time would not permit me to comment on all the areas in which our second chairman has served, but it would be remiss of me not to mention his service as a senator, and totally inexcusable not to highlight his service as chairman of our school board. Nor would it be judicious on my part not to extract from our reflections on the Reverend Sam Reed some principles to guide us as we strive into our future. Regarding his role as senator in the upper house, we should note that he served his country in that position on 2 occasions. The first was in 1972, when he was appointed during the PNP administration of Prime Minister Michael Manley, and the second in 1984, under the JLP administration, of Prime Minister Edward Seattle. Former General Secretary of the JBU, Reverend Carl James, who we have the privilege of being with us this afternoon, reminded the mourners at Sam Reed's funeral service that he, Reverend Sam Reed, and I quote, was always quick to remind Baptists that he did so with understanding that he would exercise independence in the positions he took in the Senate. Without doubt, Sam Reed is deserving of highest commendation for his courage in rising above partisan politics to accept those appointments. On one side and the other, took a lot of courage. And he was criticized by some of his own when he did that. And for being able to maintain throughout that period his independence of thought in the execution of his responsibilities. Reverend Reed succeeded Reverend James as board chairman in April 1977, and I was privileged to be principal for our beloved school, from 1975 to 1981, the same year in which he resigned as chairman. Some of you will recall that he returned to serve as chairman again from November 1999 to November 2002. I'm reliably informed that at the first graduation ceremony on his return to that position, he demonstrated his wit because he was a man of wit. Much to the pleasure of his audience on that occasion, by stating that the occasion then signified his second coming. Those of you who are Bible oriented will realize the significance of that. He's a man of the cloud. He was able to make light, and that is a love that is prohibited of that occasion, on that occasion. Because of the overlap of some of Reverend Reed's years with my own, I'm in a good position, I think, to touch on a few of the significant things that took place under his watch as chairman. The support of the Board of Governors and the guidance and responsiveness of Reverend Reed, its chairman, provided a stabilizing context for my administration. Let me share with you further my appreciation of his role as chairman while I was principal, and as I expressed it to the author of the book on the first 50 years. Excuse me, and I quote, I believe that Reverend Reed's image as a minister of the Jamaica Baptist Union and as a social commentator and senator added much to the luster of the school. He was a big man in this flag. Importantly, he was a man of high standards himself, and he understood well the difference between the roles of chairman and principal. I appreciated very much the degrees of freedom he allowed me as I executed my functions within the ambit of the Code of Regulations and the policies approved by the board. It was during Reverend Reed's tenure that the school population exploded from approximately 200 to over 900 as we settled into the complex at Carrick Road. Simultaneously, there was the diversification part of the curriculum to include the laboratory sciences, technical, business, and agricultural subjects, in addition to art, music, and physical education. Of significance, too, was the rise in the academic and professional profile of our teaching staff. And by 1979, 60% of the subjects sat in the Cambridge examinations were passed. We had not yet reached where we wanted to be, but we had come a long way from where we used to be. In sports, especially in track and field, we began to build a good reputation. In 1978 and 1980, we won Western champs, and in 1980 went on to win the Mortimer Geddes Shield for being the most improved school in the girls' national championship, where we placed 6th. And this was before we had a proper running track, and still had to journey to Hamden Estates to hold our annual athletics sports day. By the end of Reverend Reed's chairmanship in 1981, a small but important index that the school was being seen in a favorable light by the community was the reduction over the period in the number of requests for transfers from our school to some other place by the parents and the guardians of the children who had passed the common entrance for name. Indeed, we had developed a good name, a brand among the townspeople, and others from remote districts were readily identified. And my successes down through the years and the decades since then have continue to build on that brand that we got started. Without doubt, service characterized the life of Reverend Samuel, whose name became a household word in many parts of Jamaica. But there was a dimension to his service that we must not miss. He was creative and courageous in his contributions to whatever and wherever he was given the opportunity to serve. Former General Secretary of the JBU, Reverend Carl Johnson, paying tribute to Reverend Reed at his funeral, highlighted his service to various churches by saying, and I quote, "Whether his service was short or long, the Reverend C.S. Reed made a difference." Notice those words. Because he was never content with what he calls maintenance ministry, just a carry on. Yeah, he made a difference. This approach to service in his pastoral ministry carried over into other areas of service and propelled him to think and act creatively in order to get things done. Allow me to mention 3 examples of Sam Reed's creativity and courage. The first was the bold and creative decision that he took to sell the Calvary Baptist Church on Market Street in Montego Bay to Victoria Mutual Building Society and to erect a much larger sanctuary and the educational center on Cornalby Avenue. He faced strong criticisms about it, it wasn't an easy passage, including allegations of conflict of interest with the purchaser. Reverend Devin Dick, in his article column, already referred to in this lecture, asserts that it was Sam Reed's and I quote, strong negotiating skills which enabled the relocation project to take place without a rift in the Calvary Baptist Church. End of quote. What a man. It is incontrovertible that the conception and implementation of this project have served the Calvary Church in its diverse ministries exceptionally well and has placed Reverend Reed's action squarely in the category of creative and courageous. The second example of Reverend Reed's creative thinking out of the box, if you will, comes from his contribution to policy changes in the JBU. While he was in the union's leadership, the following impactful changes, which have become entrenched in its practices, were introduced. The appointment of a president's assistant to allow the president more time to execute his or her onerous responsibilities. Then the revamping of the ministerial formation program to require an aspiring minister to undergo a pre-collegiate year of further reflection and theological exposure, and then finally to undertake a post-collegiate 2-year period of internship before becoming eligible for ordination. When I read this first, as a university man, I said, well, it sounds like whoever went to the ministry is like I'm reading for medicine, study medicine. It's a long, long program to make sure that when we go to them, and turned off them, we go to them, we get the best, right? The training. And irrespective of all the comparisons made with UWL and other institutions, the Faculty of Medical Sciences has always stood out. The first, and perhaps the foremost, it has been quite a history. So, our second chairman was a man to watch, and we watched him for a long period. He served our school well, and he served the nation of Jamaica well. And finally, with regard to his creativity, I received information, and I had a discussion with, and saw a document that she had written with Professor Emerita Elsa Leorine, former Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the Mona campus, who worked with Reverend Reed at the Grace Kennedy Foundation, GKF. He was one of the first set of directors when it was formed in 1982, and remained so until his retirement in 2005. Not only was Reverend Reed involved in drafting the objectives of the foundation, but it was he who proposed that satisfying these objectives could be facilitated through an annual public lecture series akin to the famous Reed Lectures aired on the BBC between 1948 to 2007. Reverend Reed's proposal was accepted, and the first lecture was delivered in 1989. the foundation in its records, on its website, have commented on the value that those lectures have been. The subjects covered of national interest and beyond. And these books that have become, or these texts, I don't know what form they're online, so they perhaps have been digitized. But they're available on the foundation of the Grace Kennedy Foundation. And they are required reading, both the University of the West Indies and other places, University of Technology being one of them. So it's quality stuff we're talking about. That's part of the legacy they get left. And for us too, we have access to them. Let me leave with you, finally. I might have said finally before. This is, I know that pastors, I'm not really a pastor, but are famous for license to do that. But it's a matter of thinking out of the box. And this is from outside, as I have been doing in the lecture so far. Examples drawn from, among others, of whatever it is that one is trying to put across. But it's a simple story about thinking out of the box. The first is about an incident in which a truck attempting to pass under an overhead bridge got stuck. Despite the best efforts of the driver, he was unable to move the truck forward or backward. Engineers, firefighters, and other experts were called in to assess the situation and make recommendations. Their opinions revolved around dismantling parts of the truck or chipping away parts of the bridge. While the experts were debating these actions, a boy passing by nonchalantly said, "Why not just let the air out of the tires?" His suggestion was applied, and within minutes, the truck easily passed under the bridge. And I was not boy. Don't let anybody hear that. Often the most obvious solutions are the hardest to come by. Why? Because of the self-imposed constraints within which we think and work. Let us begin to train our minds to look at things from a different perspective and to bring unconventional thinking to bear on the issues which confront us individually and collectively. The other example is the modern story of Netflix. All have heard of Netflix? Yes. And some of us use Netflix. And that has unfolded before our very eyes. Two men, Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph, began Netflix in 1997, when one of them had to pay a late fee for a movie rental. They developed the idea that they could offer DVD movies to rent by mail for a monthly fee, with no due dates or late fees. The idea caught on and expanded into streaming, with Netflix eventually becoming a leader in the production of original content. The streaming services of Netflix and others who have entered the market have had a significant effect on movie theater attendance here in Jamaica and abroad. As more people choose to watch movies at home, the film industry is experiencing shrinking revenues. In the meantime, Netflix has been growing. It grew from 21.5 million subscribers in 2011 to 203 million in 2020. And in 2023, recorded a whopping profit of $5.4 billion. Netflix story illustrates in a dramatic way what can happen when a person or persons dare to think outside of the box. As one commentator has put it, a mindset, and I quote, a mindset of curiosity and openness can unlock our creative potential and make a positive impact on our personal and professional lives. So let us dare to think differently and unleash our creativity to shape a better future. End of quote. In closing, let us not depart from this historic event today, whether you are in the auditorium or you are online, without recalling that our founding father, the Reverend Stephen James, had a dream, and that he persevered against great odds and in spite of many setbacks to see that dream realized. I exhort you to let the values of dreaming and persevering be embedded in our minds and spirits as we strive into our future. I encourage you also to recall that one of the outstanding characteristics of the Reverend Samuel Reed, our second board chairman, was to use his various gifts in the service of others. And like Samuel, never be satisfied with maintenance ministry. Just going along, you know. Never being creative, never thinking beyond the limitations that you see at present. Wherever you are placed in life, to make a difference while you're there. Young ones, even in school, right, where you're rigidly, programmed, make a difference. Whether in the classroom or out on the playing field, make a difference. Finally, recall that Sam Reed was creative and courageous, and pledged to accept that approach, that philosophy, if you will, to think outside the box. If we dream, if we persevere, if we use our gifts in the service of others, and if we think out of the box, we will make a difference in our homes, at our workplaces, at our churches, at our schools, in our communities, in our nation, and importantly, in the William Lidd Memorial High School Alumni Association. Indeed, we'll be able to stride into our future with confidence, holding our heads high. I thank you very much.
Give another round of applause. And I love I know Mr. Falloon said he's not a preacher, but his words that he shared a while ago, I believe is one that for us as pastors here we could use in our sermons. As he spoke about being a dreamer and persevering like Stephen James, our founding father, and also being creative and courageous like our board chairman C.S. Reed, to think outside of the box and to do our best. I believe these words still ring clear and loud in our minds, and especially upon our hearts, as products of William Lidd Memorial High School. And I think the words here today, I believe it should, if it has not, I hope it is right now, setting ablaze a fire in our hearts as past students to say, listen, this legacy must continue. Must continue. Our students that are here today, I hope that you are seeing for yourselves the rich heritage that you now are a part of. That you are now seeing that you are a part of a heritage that is commendable and stands tall anywhere you go in this island of Jamaica and in the world itself. So, though it is not my duty to offer thanks, I just wanted to put that book right there so that the moment is not lost on us, so that we can remember these words from, I almost say reverend, but nothing wrong with Mr. E.G. Anthony Falloon. Give him another round of applause. At this time, you are not able to participate in this lecture by asking any questions that you may have. There is a mic that is placed in the aisle, so you may just come close and ask your question, or if you just want to make a comment, you are also free to do so. And so Mr. Falloon will respond. And so if you have any questions, I ask you now to come to the mic and to ask.
Good afternoon, Mr. Falloon. You speak of having a dream and pursuing the dream. I want to ask you about some of the challenges that you encountered as principal. I know we spoke about 2 persons just now, but having looked at their lives, consider the challenges that you faced and how you confronted those challenges as a young principal in Falloon.
You mind if I stand up? I'm not a preacher, but I'm a part-time preacher, so I like to stand. Thank you very much. A good question, my friend. Becoming a principal, a young principal, and I was just a few I met for the first time, I was spoken. Your current principal, Principal Wright, because he dwarfs me, I believe, in youth. I don't think I looked as young as he looks when I was here, but I'm happy about that. But firstly, if I say so myself, standards meant a great deal to me. And building standards and promoting the idea that only the best is really good enough, and that we need to strive to do better. We had a small beginning, not just thinking of numbers, it's part of it, but what we had to offer. We got the opportunity to offer far more. We must grasp that with both hands. And I almost used a political term, but I think you understand what it means. We must run with it, which has become a quite popular term once in our history. But we must use the opportunities that we have. And you're asking me about challenges. When I didn't think that a staff member or student were neither, and I speak of staff member, it could be several. But in general, there was support for standards. But every now and again, you saw a situation where you realized that the message somehow hadn't reached that individual or that student for that matter. I mean, simple things on the part of the student. I think you have more challenges now than in my time with students. But how you conducted yourself on the road. You came from William Lynn, then you had to conduct yourself on the road, but in a certain way. And fruits in particular were problematic because we are Jamaicans and we like the mangoes and we like it. But if you came to William Lynn, I don't want to see you on the road at Shaw Mango. And you could see it, when you drove down the main road into Falloon. Students suddenly hustling or doing something to correct themselves from whatever they were doing. And that was one aspect of it. But when these staff members weren't measuring up, that hurt me. The pain, particularly in the latter part of my stay here, 79, 80, 81. And I remember there was a graduation, one of the graduations, And things didn't go as well in my eyes as I expected. And as usual, and I'm sure happens now, we are having a post-mortem in a staff meeting. And describe what I had seen from some of our own students was outside there. And I had we spoke about the positives, and there were many, but a few negatives, and spoke about something else too, which was disappointing. Having realized over the years the kind of standard that we aimed at in terms of behavior. And at the end of that discussion, member of staff who was fairly senior by then said in the meeting, "But Mr. Falloon, everything can run right, sir. Mr. Falloon, everything can run right, sir." And I found that a disappointing comment. Coming from that person, particularly. Yeah, we need to aim for everything to run right. Don't always work out. But don't use that as a kind of, not just a bad thing after all, everything can run right. So, that kind of thing, standards, getting others to rise to those standards, and continuing to put in the effort, and to believe that the standard is the way that you must go. Don't excuse other kinds of way. I'm sorry to take so long about it, but that was one thing.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Falloon. I think I should start from just acknowledging or expressing appreciation just for how you presented these two persons who we see pictures on the wall and we very often take for granted, I think, especially the younger generation or the persons who are in school now. We take for granted the start of William Nick and what Stephen James had to endure over many years before the institution was formed. So I think your presentation here today really will help all of us to kind of recenter and to use these opportunities to push us forward. Thank you again very much.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Good afternoon, everyone. It was a very inspiring presentation for me. Being one of the pioneering science students back in Pakistan. And being 1976, managing from Falloon to here, it's a very good experience. Based on your presentation, I'm getting the feeling that you still have a dream for William Lee. And my question to you and to the current principal is how can we synthesize your dream, his dream, my dream, and the dream of others for William Lee? Because I've been here a couple times since leaving. Well, you can see the grades that I left in 1978, by the way. And I came back and did some teaching. And I have a vision, but I would like my vision to be part of a bigger vision. And I'm sure your mentorship could help. Let's see.
You made a statement. Which I no doubt think is a positive statement, and I'm sure I'm certainly willing, in whatever way I can. Because of genetics, I don't have a lot of gray hair, if any at all. But there comes a time, you would say, an American image from the Western culture that they have. You have to have your boots and stuff like that. But more seriously, certainly, in whatever way I can, through the association or through other means, you can contact me, count on me, beg your pardon. And I hinted in my text that I know the principal is a man of vision also, board members too. And sometimes we can't do things because we don't have resources. Monetary resources, obviously, but also just space. And And I mentioned 2 spaces, which, depending on what's the overall vision, what we're going to do with those spaces. But when I came up here from Market Street, you know, it was in the back of my mind. And it sort of turned over from time to time. Here was a space which we had been using as a school. It belonged to the church which I happened to attend, and the church which has a close association with the school from then, and the persons who were involved and so on. And I said, what shall we do with this property that is there? I thought about some kind of remedial education classes, people who dropped out of school, you know, they weren't in the mainstream anymore, but we could still do something with them. I was overtaken by one that was happening here, so I never gave it any further thought. But from what has been said, there clearly is an outward approach, running out of space here, and I'm sure in due course thoughts will be turned to adjoining properties to see how they might be able to help, or adjoining our property, the one in Market Street that, of course, this is that we negotiated with owners, and so on and so forth. So I'm saying yes, never rest on our laurels, right? If Wester Powell had done so, operating from his parents' home on the veranda, lots of legacies that he has left would not be so. Or if there wasn't a dream on the part of our founder, we wouldn't have reached here. You know, not doing it on his own. And that's very important. Work in conjunction with others. Mandela, not on his own, but somebody has to lead. Somebody has to have the vision. Thank you for the question. Yes,
this is not.
This is
no, this is just a question. I don't think you will want to answer. But I want to use this opportunity to make a comment and to raise a matter that has been raised before. And I see you smirking. So I think you know where I'm going.
So not smirking.
I see you. So you know where I'm going. But your presentation, coupled with Mr. Leng's comment, really bolstered. If the school was not named after an individual, I would be perhaps a little more comfortable. But your lecture today stirred up some deep emotions, especially as you took us back to S.S. James's bedside in St. Joseph's Hospital and drew us again to how on his sick bed this school was on his mind, in his heart, in his prayer. Why aren't we more courageous to name this school in honor of the man who really gave it back?
Comments by indicating that he wasn't asking to answer the question. I'm thankful that he didn't answer the question. Because it's a tough question, actually. It's a tough question.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
I'm sorry, Claudia, but just to say that when I did the research and I came across the information that I shared, I remembered our conversation previously about, what name should the school carry. And that's why I introduced the line in the text, if we had any doubt, he is the true founder of the school. Thank you.
Okay, sir, good afternoon. Listening to your presentation and your focus as it related to the vision of our founder, our past chairman. I, as a past student of this institution, is going to zero in on your vision as a principal for this institution. You know, and I'm speaking from the point of view where I was, like say, the first reform in this institution. And coming in from Market Street to here, to Carr Road, and the transition, a number of things happened. And my experience during that period. We looked at you, Mr. Falloon, who apart from the building, who took that canvas and put a masterpiece together. What happened in 1974, 1975, 1976 was when we crossed the Jordan River. And that blank canvas, when you said to your students then, I hope you remember, that you tasked us as students to, in terms of the property itself, in terms of the aesthetics, when we look at the couscous grass there, remember a class that was given that responsibility to plant couscous grass. When I think of the almond tree that was down there, and we think of the mill, and all of this place, when we saw your vision coming into reality as we were given the task to improve the space and to make it one of the cleanest institutions. We couldn't lean up on the wall because it was the rough matter. But the other persons are too young to remember that, right? And you know, so we, apart from that, the students who were walking from Martha Bray to Falmouth and back in the evenings, two abreast. It was two abreast. And if we were not going from Carr Road to Falmouth two abreast, and we saw that green, what is a Cortina driving on, we would quickly fall in line. And so what came with that is the discipline that was instilled in us. That, you know, we were firmly, those were, you know, I am saying, to be standing here and talking, I'm feeling it all, right? And I must say I was probably one of the best students because that kind of rebellion that came with my personality at some stage that, you know, I had to fall in line. But we used that also to test you because we were seen as the seniors then. And many of us, you know, we tried to say this new principal coming in. So we wanted to rag him a little still, but he stood his ground and he said, this is what I want for the institution, and this is my vision in terms of giving the nation the best quality students. So we are not singing roses when you are gone. We are saying your vision helped me in my future life. So we salute you to Mr. Falloon and thank you for what you did.
Thank you very much for your kind comments. I appreciate them immensely.
Just a comment, Mr. Falloon. When I heard the history and all Reverend James in particular, my thoughts were the same as Reverend Johnson. And I'm just echoing it to say it would be a fitting thing. Not an advocate, but it would be a fitting thing. Thank you so much for the history lesson. I truly enjoyed it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, colleagues. It's really good to be home. I have so many fond memories in this auditorium, and a lot of them are with Mr. Falloon standing just right where he is there now. And so, sir, you know, you always have a special place in my heart, being my principal. And of course, one thing that I always remember is that when I graduated from university, you were the one who handed me my diploma. And so I felt so special because when everyone else was getting a shake hand, Vivian and I, we got a home. And so that was special. So I just wanted to remind you, and we all have fond memories of you here. But you know what I want for you to share, if it's just a few of your memories of us. Just to let us know how some of the funny things or something. We've heard the history, but we want for you to share a little of the fond memories that you have of this precious place. Thank you. And thanks again for the history lesson. I really, really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot. Thank you so much.
You want that at the next occasion or no? Yes, there are many fond memories. It is easier to remember those which are not so fond because they stick out in your mind. But as I saw the improvement in we don't want to come to school just to get good examination grades. Grades are important, yeah? Nevertheless, way into the job market and so on, that's also important. And as I used to say, when I went to school, Latin was still being taught. And one of the comments made, and of course there were all the various sports, teachers would say more than, from time to time, you come to school to learn Latin and run, not the other way around. Although sometimes we might want that, because people who are talented in that area, schools need to provide an opportunity and so on. But I like it. But seeing results and seeing improvement in results and knowing where we were coming from, that pleased me immensely. Secondly, you know, and that was a kind of upward trajectory. And you know, if the school wouldn't have been built in terms of the institution without improvements in that area. And the same thing with, you know, we would list on the back or some part of the program for graduation the names of the teachers and their qualifications. And looking at the difference between 1 year and another year and a later year as to what was happening with the cadre of teachers, where they were coming from and their qualifications. That also warmed, you know, my heart, because you're not going to be able to really build a good academic program if you don't have teachers who are qualified and experienced. And that made a tremendous difference for me. Also, and I think some people here would have been there, we had this going thing, it was really a program in the school of what is called community projects, which reference has been made to. And some of the examples in terms of the landscaping, for example, a lot of it had to do with landscaping, to make the place attractive. And the rules governing how we treat the walls, particularly the walls and the toilets, and a strict rule about graffiti. And apart from it not being allowed, but you would have those who would escape and would resist the temptation. And you know, graffiti usually consists of things and subjects which they take the opportunity to put their thoughts on the walls, because nobody can see them, so to speak. So it's difficult to catch anybody. But it was a standard. And the graffiti had to be moved immediately. And if we didn't know who did it, then we'd have to get somebody. If it happened in a classroom, the class was responsible for it. Not likely to have the graffiti in the classroom, but just scrawling on the walls. You know, to see the low level, generally speaking, brought joy to my heart, because it's a problem in our institutions, and to see that there was that cooperation. But back to the community projects, because each form had an area of the school grounds to look after. And at the end of the year, we also, and they raised funds for in all kinds of ways, so that we could be helping not only ourselves, but others, institutions in particular. The infirmary was one such place. And we had a big presentation in the auditorium here towards the end of the school year. And photographs were taken and speeches given. And I remember Leon Jackson, now photographer and journalist, was present, and he must have taken some photographs back then in his upward mobility to become a real top flight photographer. And I have the photographs here from the Gleam. And it pleased me very much that as school, we were able to do that. Taking care of the property so that you have respect for the property, so you would have a certain feeling about your school, and that covered the whole graffiti business also. I remember one day a visitor to the school, pretty ordinary citizen, if I put it that way, and she had a companion, another woman was with her. She said, "Relax, what the way the place looked like a hotel." I thought that was a big, big compliment, you know. But make you respond differently to your environment if it is dirty and all the other actions that you could use. Then you know bother. You just make it gone, and you add your dirt to it also. So to have been able to accomplish that at the time brought a great deal of satisfaction. I could go on, but that wouldn't be fair. Thank you.
I just want to thank Mr. Falloon for instilling some discipline that he would have passed on to us. In my current role as head of human resources, it is something that I have taken with me, and this is something that I've learned. The mentorship, the discipline that he would have just indicated from the beginning that he had strong values. And when he spoke about community service, I remember in this very auditorium, we had a platform which was up there, and everybody was given just a piece of broken glass. I was telling someone, and we complained. He says, "Boys and girls, all you need to do is just to apply some elbow grease." And we got off all of that paint and stain that was on the platform and cleaned it. It was smooth and ready for staining. And I was just comparing, if you were to ask probably one of these the children nowadays, that they would go and the parents would come and say, "You can't ask me picnic, you know, the entire particular that's what they send them to school for." But the way Mr. Falloon put it, we were very happy to do it because we saw it as service and instilling strong values in us. So this is something that, thank you, sir, for instilling in us at the time. And I listened to Claudette and Ellis and all the others, and Norman spoke earlier about, you know, and Elizabeth, what we experienced when you were here. And I want to thank you for just instilling those strong values in us. And that is what I think has propelled us, and as we move into different career paths, that is what has helped us. And be mentor for other children, and even the workplace, you know, for the mentorship program which I do, But where I am, it is because of what you have instilled in us, and I want to thank you for that. And thank you also for the presentation this evening and for so ably speaking about CS James and Sam.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Before we show our gratitude to Mr. Falloon, I just want to say to us that I have a set of keys in my possession, so please check to see if you have lost them. You will see me afterwards to claim them. And so I want to invite a former head girl, a former teacher, a former vice principal, and I must say teacher extraordinaire, to come at this time and to express our gratitude to Mr. Falloon for what he has done. And so we invite Lorna Jackson to come and to make a presentation to Mr. Falloon.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm sure I'm the envy of a number of alumni present who would love to make this presentation to a man that we have grown to love. And I particularly said grown to love because Ellis in his presentation did say that you are loved, you are feared. And I'm saying that we grew to love you because as students, I think I might have been the first of all the students that you would have had at William Lee. And back then, I am not sure that it was love, so to speak, at first sight. But we matured to love you. But we used to whisper and say, where this man come from? He's omnipresent. Because you could not make a move and Mr. Falloon was not right there. Granted, the place was a little smaller, the old school, but we used to say this man is omnipresent. And a number of the lessons that you would have taught us still stayed with me. Fear was something that we had as students, I have to tell you that. So when they talk about two abreast, even today, if I am walking and I find myself to be the third person, I either step in front or go to the back. Because Mr. Falloon always said two abreast. I also remember as a student walking on Market Street, heading down to Cornwall Street for those of you who know Falmouth. Right at the post office, there is a garage someplace down the road. And when I made the turn to go down that street, I saw Mr. Falloon's car. I turned right back. That was the level of fear that we had because he had certain expectations of us and you did not want to be found lacking. So it would have been best if you keep out of sight in case you had any kind of question. And so I am very pleased to make this presentation to you, just to say thank you, sir, for the way that you have spoken, the way you have spoken and engaged us this afternoon. It really is my prayer that, especially the present students, it will help them to build a sense of loyalty that we've always been clamoring that there is not enough loyalty among our students. And so, having heard the rich legacy of your past, I pray that it will begin now to engender a deeper sense of loyalty, and that you will now start to pass it on to those who are behind you. So Mr. Falloon, it is my absolute pleasure to make this presentation, And just to say, on behalf of the alumni, we wish you many, many more years of satisfying living. Thank you, sir.
Yes, I appreciate this very, very much. And all the things that are in it will be put to good use, let me show you. And I see my name on it also, and I see my name correctly spelled. I don't expect anything less from associated activity. And it really has been a pleasure. And then when I hear that I was and still love it, wow. That doesn't always happen, so I'm particularly delighted. There was a young man, a student in the school, who was always into mischief and so on. Back in those bad old days, we were allowed to cane boys. We got a cane from him. And boy, didn't go down well at all. And he was heard to say sometime afterwards that he doesn't wait to leave school because you're getting gunned at the washroom. But and in all honesty, whenever I came the boy, depending on his body size and his height, I questioned myself as to, is this going to go all right? And Kenny had its, well, I believe it did some good, but it also had its downside. Because one of the things I was particularly careful about, and I preferred, in fact, to apply the cane to the rear. And the reason really was that when you did it to the palm of the hand, the end of the cane would easily come above the wrist, above the wrist, and then leave wheels, marks, blood-shots. And when the parents get that part and see it happening, whoo, whoo, not as bad as today, the parents have a reaction, but it's disturbing, it was disturbing, and any parent would be, and forget a murder to pick me and so on and so forth. So you have to be cautious. Well, we'll move from those bad old days. But thank you very much. Really delightful afternoon for me, and thanks for this token of appreciation.
As we come to the final stage, or final stages in our program this afternoon, we're going to invite our current principal, Principal Wright, to come and to extend the vote of thanks. Please welcome.
It's the first thing I want to acknowledge. That one of the things I saw that this evening held a kind of spirituality to it in conveying to many of us who are here what that sense of loyalty is first served. But I also want to just, before I begin, sir, just acknowledge too the presence of my chairman, the presence of the president of the Jamaica Baptist Union, the vice president has left, the president of the General Secretary of the Jamaica Teachers Association, and I know the former president and my colleague was here, all of the past students, members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force who are here. I think having said all of the past students, I have covered many, and that's great there. 6 formers, our students who are here, I really want to thank you for coming. But I don't think they asked me to offer this vote of thanks just because they didn't want the vote of thanks. I guess they wanted the principal to say something. And some of the things I'd like to say, sir, is that are that one of the things I shared in a little retreat we had at the board made what you say resonant. Because a part of what you have said, well, we were doing a kind of brainstorming for our SIP. And one of the things that came up there was that we were talking so much about academics. And a huge thing that we ought to really be making concern on is character. And so a huge part of what we ought to be doing is looking at vision. So there are many people asking me, what is my vision? I always tell my students two things. My vision is big enough. Is that you come to learn and to behave yourself. To learn how to be two simple things. But how we do that now is maybe the big thing in terms of the vision. So I don't know that many of the things. I heard them speaking to many things, sir. I figure I'm dwarfed in my own attempts to do many of the things that you did. But the other important thing, again, I say, sir, is that what you have left has left a spirit that we want to thank you for. It's not just your, it's not just the spirit of cleanliness, the spirit of wanting to, and what you have done for me in this chair, and I wouldn't say it's a lonely chair because I have good support. Even in the talk you had this evening, was a kind of support that made me stand tall. And it's the kind of thing that really makes your gratitude really deep. And I want to thank you on behalf of all the students here, on behalf of all the past students here. I also remembered when I came, and I think you'll forgive me if I want to put in my point, when I came and I heard of Mr. Falloon, I researched every single thing about you from I was a student. I realized he was working at Ewing, that's the past long time in the 80s I did those research. So I knew of you. Meeting you for the first time, I think I met your voice first because you called me one day and you had that kind of thing. But the important thing for me, ladies and gentlemen, is that this moment is a moment of gratitude because it reminds us of where we're coming from. Yes. Right? And it reminds us of how we ought to move ourselves to go forward. And a part of the work that we have, not just me, a part of the work that all of us has, is to understand that the greatest expression of gratitude to the work of people like Reverend Reed and Reverend James and the inimitable Mr. Falloon is to just understand that we have work to understand how we catch the spirit, live with it, and run with it. Every single one of you who has been a part of this occasion, the past students, our own students here who work, or past students on staff, because I really watch what is happening. And those who supported, I watch the photographers this evening. And every single one who has been a part of making Wayland what it is. But just for this occasion, to make this occasion what it is, the inspiration it is, the drive it has given us, we just want to thank you all. And I hope you're all been blessed. I just want to thank God for the occasion. And I hope you're all blessed. Have a good evening.
So then, friends, a few words and we wrap up. Just to remind us, register is being passed around, especially for the past students to sign up. And if you are in upper 6, lower 6, you can ask to write your name on it if you're a prospective alumni. And so, if you are so inclined, please add your name to the list. Also, just to remind you that we'll be serving some refreshment at the end. We ask that to allow our guests to partake first, and then we can go after. And also, to my left, your right, we have books on sale, the book on sale with them, the first 50 years, only at a reasonable cost of $2,000. Please don't leave. Please don't leave without getting your copy of this book, full of information, and I believe you read it, you'll also see that some of what Mr. Falloon spoke about comes directly from itself. So please don't leave without purchasing your copy of William Memorial High School, the first 50 years. Make sure that you are part of that. Yeah. Oh, the camera. Okay. Right. Those, especially those of you online, please contact the school and we can make arrangements for you to get your copy of the book. Again, let me say I have a set of ring keys in my possession. Please, if you have lost a set, please check to see if you have lost a set of keys, and please keep me before we go this afternoon as we may retrieve it. Thanks again, everyone, for being a part of our second Founders Day lecture. Just to let you know that already plans are afoot for next year to be bigger and better, and we want again your support to be a part of this venture, especially among our past students. Thank you again for coming, and I invite us all to stand as we sing our school song, which is another part of our program. I know that those in Mr. Falloon's time will know this song, but you can learn it. It's quite easy. If I start singing, I'll be able to follow me. I make a joyful noise. I have the current student body to start it for us.
We
One picture.
Mr. Falloon,
Let me sing. Hold on. Remember,